So, Caitlin, I genuinely have been excited to meet you in person and to talk about your new book. It was sent to me, at least the galley's part, so I'll just hold it up and uh, read it harder, better, stronger, or longer. Let me read it. There's so many good words. Harder, better, longer, stronger. Subtitled Science, Skills, and Secrets for the Best Sex of Your Life by
Woohoo!
Caitlin V. And I just, for those that don't know you in my audience, Caitlin, I'm just going to read your bio from your book.
Please.
Caitlin V is a renowned sexologist, researcher, content creator dedicated to helping people gain confidence and transform their lives through better sex. With 2 decades of experience and a scientific, sex positive approach, Caitlin has empowered millions of people to realize their sexual potential. So that was exciting when I heard about you. And then I realized I had just finished interviewing a man who wrote a quote for your book, which I wanted to read to. You never can get to it when you want it.
Well, and the galley copies don't have all of the
Yeah,
testimonials on them either.
well, it was by a fellow who is I think I wrote it here, um, yeah, Justin Lee Miller was a senior research fellow at the Kinsey Institute. So he offered a quote which was wonderful, where he basically said, "This is the book, every penis should come as an owner's manual." I thought that was clever and true. So I want to just start by talking about your name. I think names are important, and the name on the cover obviously is Caitlin V. So say, if you will, a little bit more about your name and what
Yeah.
that means and
So
why Caitlin V.
so why can't it be? So I admit it's not that clever of a story. It's actually more coincidental than anything. When I started my career as a content creator, when I left graduate school and left my doctoral program and started coaching, I put my real name on my website and on my YouTube channel. And because I didn't really expect that it was ever going to blow up or that I would ever get any degree of like celebrity or notoriety, I certainly never imagined I was ever going to get recognized in public when I started. And so my name is not a secret. It's on my URL,
Right.
it's and I'm a published researcher too. So if you go to ResearchGate and you search like Caitlin Neal, you will find me. But there are, as you might imagine, plenty of other people with that name. I've been fighting over like Twitter handles and email addresses with other Caitlin Neals my whole life. But my middle name is Victoria. And so I always differentiated my name by saying Caitlin V. Neal. But the coolest thing about my name, I think, is that Caitlin translates to pure or clear, and Victoria translates to victorious. So my name means pure victory.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you. That's a really wonderful, just uh, both explanation and more in depth who you are. So I know you've coached thousands of men and couples through your fairly long and distinguished career thus far. You're just getting started, and I'd be interested in, as a fellow author, what inspired you to write the book, Harder, Better, Longer, Stronger. I'll just at least get that part off the tip of my tongue. And what gaps did it fill? What was, I mean, there's a lot of books out in the world.
Totally.
Why this one for you?
Yeah.
And what did you hope to let people know that they didn't already know?
So the first thing, my own personal reason for writing the book was I had come to the point where I had gotten my methodology that I had developed over the previous 10 years of working with men to the point where I had put it on video. I had, finessed it with clients. I was teaching it in small containers to other coaches, and I felt that it was time for me to put it in a format where it could reach more people at scale for less money, essentially, for a lower investment. An online course is great, but they run around $97 or, I can't talk to that many people in a one-on-one capacity or even in a group capacity. And even if I did, that's a synchronous style. I'd have to have them all in at the same time. But a book, as you well know, allows you to transcend time and space because it can live on someone's shelf for a day or a year. They can pick it up, they can put it down. It's not a significant investment for most people. The hardcover is 27. I think the Kindle ebook and audio are all less than that. So it's not nothing, but it doesn't break most folks' bank.
Yep.
And so I saw that it had way more potential, a slower, more subtle power than, say, an online course or a YouTube video. But I would almost liken that to, say, like the slow, subtle power of like a volcano or like seismic plates or something, right? Like they're working all of the time in the background. You don't notice them, but every so often there's like an eruption or a new island gets formed or a new mountain is made or something significant shifts, but it takes a long, slow period of time. And that's the kind of power that I think a book has. The other question that you asked is, what gap does it fill? There's a very famous book, Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And I consider it sort of like, it is of the canon of female sexual health and well-being. It's such a phenomenal book that it sprang off multiple follow-up books from Emily Nagoski, including Burnout, including Come Together. And it just set a new tone and standard in terms of describing sexual wellness holistically from a evidence-based and modern approach. And there's no such book for men. There are many books for men that sort of are either in the field of medical science and are written by urologists, or are maybe more in the field of psychology and are written by therapists and social workers and folks who work with men in that area. But I wanted to write something that was coming distinctly from my perspective as a former sexual health researcher turned coach who ended up working with men, just almost coincidentally. It was like they were just given to me. I had to like figure out how to work with them 10 years ago because of a YouTube video that went viral. But the unique perspective that I had had just speaking about sex exclusively with men for the last 10 years, not as a urologist or as an MD, but also not as a certified sex therapist, because they have a different perspective as well. So I got to thread sort of like coach, educator, and and former public health researcher, and wanted to make my contribution to the literature in that way.
Nice. Truly interesting, the how we get to be doing what we're doing and some of the synchronicities and unexpected ways. I was going to ask you how a woman comes to be, talking specifically to men, which I now hear. And one thing I'd like to just, as a man and as somebody that's been working in the field for a long time, I know that there's certain things that women will tell me that they don't tell another woman because I'm
Hmm.
a guy and I can give them certain things that they don't get other places. So in terms of what men are telling you, I know there's some things that you hear
Hmm.
that maybe be surprising or that other people don't know that men are telling you about. Can you share some of those things that might be surprising to us or might be helpful to other men to know what other guys may be
Yeah,
sharing with you?
this is a brilliant question because I sit at a three-way intersection that allows me to have a unique perspective on men and men's sexuality in particular. Number one is that I am a woman who has been primarily with male partners, although I identify as bisexual, and I'll get to that in just a second. But because of that, I have a lot of personal experience of like what it is like to be intimate with a man. Right. And I used to get this comment, not so much anymore, but when I started on YouTube, I would get a lot of, well, the internet can be a very unkind place. I would get a lot of very hateful comments that would say something like, well, like, what does she know? Right. Like, she doesn't have the equipment. She could never. Right. But I would often remind them, like, I think I've probably seen more men naked than you have, right? I think I actually do know a thing or two about men when it comes to this intimate space, just through my own personal experience. Then, as I mentioned, I'm bisexual, so I have had the pleasure of being with women throughout the course of my life, and I know what it is like to make love to a woman. Now, granted, I know what it's like to make love to a woman as a woman, but I still have a perspective that a lot of heterosexual women don't, and they can't contribute necessarily. They don't have the same sort of perspective and experience that I have, which has also been quite a delight. And then the last piece that I have is I was featured in a YouTube video about female ejaculation, and it went viral, and I went overnight from, primarily working with bi and pansexual folks like myself to working with primarily heterosexual men, like in an instant. And because of that, because of the world that I had come from, and because of how very unexpected it was that this would end up being the population that I worked with, I was able to bring a very fresh and different approach and just sort of say, well, teach me. Tell me what it's like to be you. Tell me what your experience is like. And then, of course, because I was a researcher, I would assign condition A to client A and condition B to client B and condition C to client C, and then mix them up and give C to A and B to B and see over time what really worked. So I was really developing, I forget the term that they use for this in anthropology, but I was like really developing the work from scratch. I was
Mm.
taking the research and the work that I had done with women and mostly bi and pansexual folks, and then bringing that to a population with the unique lens. So for the last 10 years, I've been working with men. And like you said, as a woman, men are willing to open up to and share things to me that they might not be willing to share to other professionals who are men. Or certainly the friends that are men, or even women who they are in close, intimate relationships with, or female friends of theirs, right? There are things that I think men bring forward in my sessions with them that they're not able to, or they don't feel like they're able to say anywhere else. And they're deeply held insecurities. The thread of feeling a sense of not enoughness, whether that's from perceiving a lack of sexual capacity or skill or performance or technique, or it's got more to do with insecurity about their body or their stamina or their hardness or their ability to connect with their partner, the tender spots. And the interesting thing about that is that they're actually not exclusively gendered, and they're not, meaning that they're not exclusive to men. They're unique, but they're not exclusive, right? Women have their own sort of versions of these,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're they're in many ways universal. And I have yet to find in my work a person whose story was so completely unique, or the thing that they had to overcome was so singular to just them, because even though almost everyone who comes to me for coaching thinks that. Almost everyone who's ever come to me for coaching has said something along the lines of, I don't know that you've ever heard this before, or I think I'm the only one dealing with this. And that is a byproduct, again, of the conversations that are not taking place between men, between their female partners, and also in some capacities between men and professionals.
Indeed. I mean, I 100% underline from my experience as well. And so glad you're doing what you're doing and are reaching people. And one of the other, kind of interesting things for me about your book is that it's very honest. I've seen your videos as well. They're very down to earth. They're very real. You talk about things like erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation in, very objective ways. And I know for me, over the years when I've counseled people, I have talked about what I called the wisdom of the penis. And rather than, putting names on them, and there are places where the names are important, erectile dysfunction, but
Hmm.
I talk about it, from the penis's point of view. Erectile dysfunction may be saying something about our whole being. It may be saying something, I don't want to have sex right now. And then we could explore why that is. or premature ejaculation might be saying, I want to get this over with as quickly as possible. Well, why might that be? Maybe, you're scared. Maybe there's anxieties. And I sense that you have a similar kind of, say, down to earth or, the wisdom of the penis kind
Mhm.
of understanding that helps, I think, many men rather than seeing it as a medical problem that needs a medical drug solution, we can talk to the deeper wisdom that we're speaking. Does that resonate with
If you're
what?
just listening to the audio, I'm nodding wildly over here. My hair's flying because I couldn't agree more. I think we need to look at the body symbolically. Exactly what you're saying. Like, what symbolically underlines not being able to withstand pleasure or have a tolerance that allows you to last, up as long as you have control over your orgasm, right? In what ways is your body responding by saying, like, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to feel vulnerable in this way. I don't want to attempt to be accepted. I don't feel accepted by this person. So why would I, put up with a close, intimate sexual encounter with her or him? The idea that your body, the entire basis of the book really is organized on the idea that we treat men and their bodies like machines. That if you just put in the right amount of oil and the right amount of coolant and you tune these things, that you'll get the result, right? And I said, okay, if we're going to treat men like vehicles that have an engine, then we've got to get that. It's not just a singular engine. It's just like a car. It's not a physical engine alone, right? Like, okay, yeah, sure, you have to have a physical engine, but you got to have a whole bunch of other components, right? And for a human, that means a mental engine, an emotional engine, a relational, cultural, historical, where you've been in your past, and also a spiritual engine. And you can have gunk blocking up the works in any one of your or multiple engines. And if we stop at the physical body, then we're missing a whole bunch of important information and areas where you don't even need to have a problem. There need not be gunk in the engine. It could still be more finely tuned to get you a better result and bring you more joy and satisfaction and pleasure.
Absolutely. And I'm nodding my head and saying totally. And not only do you say it clearly and in the context that we're talking very directly, but in your book you are even more open, more direct. You have, I think, right in the introduction, if I remember it right, there's a little phrase that kind of speaks to what you just said, and you said it's not all about your dick, dude. Uh, which kind of sums it up. And for many people, we want to hear that. You don't say that in all contexts, but
Right.
when you want guys to feel like I understand. So say a little bit more if you've kind of got most of it, but
Totally.
is there anything else that you want to say about that phrase of how men have received
Yeah.
it, what that opens up for them that may, on the surface seem like, oh my God, you can't be that direct, can you?
I know. Well,
Well,
I went back
yes,
and forth on whether or not we really should include a whole chapter. It's not all about your dick, dude.
yeah.
But I realized of all the things that I really want to like shake men sometimes and just, you know, shout into their face, like, it's not all about your dick, dude. Because if we think about how men often approach, I mean, not just their sexual well-being, but like problems sort of generally, right? And there's a lot of wisdom to approaching a problem by identifying the thing and then trying to fix the thing, right? But that kind of thinking is very limited and reductive, and it sees our sexual functioning as either something that is broken or fixable, and none of that is true or particularly helpful. And so my desire is to say to a man, look, the functioning of your genitals, your cock is more of an indication than anything else. It is not the thing itself. It is an indication of the thing itself. It is a symptom. How it's functioning, what it's doing, its hardness, its ability to ejaculate or not, like all of those things are symptoms. They are downstream effects of the many systems that go together that create the context that you're operating within. So when and this is, just something that I've learned from my clients over time, they can get very hyper focused on on the cock itself, which is the most downstream factor. And that hyperfixation on the downstream prevents them from actually tackling anything that would make a really large difference upstream.
And it's, I think one of the key things, and you do it in so many wonderful ways in the book, of look at the broader issues that our our cocks, our mind, our spirit is part of an increasingly larger social context. And I love that you speak to, uh, the crisis really that we're seeing, and there's a lot written about it by a lot of different people. I've written about it of the loneliness that so many men feel, and
Yeah.
in my experience, we're cut off in so many ways from so many aspects of our total being, whether it's our bodies, our mind, our communities, and you speak to it really well, and maybe you could say a little bit more about that particular larger issue of male loneliness and how you understand it and speak to it in the book.
Yeah, so the book is coming out in the middle of a sort of spike in media coverage for something that we've known was going on for a long time. And I went back and forth during the writing process over the last like year and a half of how much I wanted to speak to this moment in time. Because on one hand, there is this incredibly pressing, timely thing that is finally getting the attention that it deserves. And on the other hand, the more that I spoke to that in the book, the more timely or more like less timeless the book became. So
Mm,
I really struggled with this. And I actually put together some online resources for people who pre-order the book, some of the stuff that I couldn't put in the book because it was really important, stuff that I like needed to get off my chest, even if I couldn't, put a couple chapters on it. And it's exactly the thing that we're discussing right now, which is the the slow moving but suddenly overwhelmingly unignorable crisis that men of all generations are dealing with right now in terms of dealing with social isolation and beyond that all of the other factors that I see coming along with that, a sense of like dread, hopelessness, giving up on dating, no longer courting, no longer wanting to excel and exceed, and feeling like a sense that they can't reach the kind of life that they desire for themselves. And so they're checking out in one way or another. And, I spend a lot of time in some of the darker corners of the internet. It feels like, anyways. I think my algorithm is pretty tuned because I want to know what kind of content is speaking
yeah,
to young men, especially young men who are suffering, young men who are maybe aren't having sex or aren't pursuing romantic relationships, like the men who I really want my work to reach.
yeah.
And I see a fair number of them sort of looking to blame like looking increasingly at women in particular as a source of blame and kind of saying like feminism ruined women or like women today they need too much or their standards are too high we never meet them or whatever. But what I actually think is happening is that all of the pain and shame and guilt that these men are feeling is being redirected back towards them, and it is making then there's multiple ways that men can react or sort of like not reach out, but like uh, can like can act with hostility towards themselves and towards the world as a response to that sort of fear, pain, shame, and isolation. And the message that I really want for my book and for the men who find my content anywhere is that yes, the systems that you exist within, that we all exist within, are changing. And it can feel like you went from being the center to being cast aside, right? That like men's needs, wants, and desires were very centered for the majority of all recorded history, and they're not being centered as much anymore. And that is not something to feel like you're a victim of. That is not something to respond to by saying, "Well, I'm not even going to play the game anymore," right? Like you are strong, you are resilient, you are capable, you are all the things that all of the beautiful things that masculinity and men are and have, that is you. And one of the things that men have and are most capable of doing is rising to a challenge, is to overcoming. Like by definition, this is like what healthy masculinity really looks like, right? Like masculinity in proportion, that's mature. Mature masculinity doesn't try to hoard power or covet it, right? It's able to share the spotlight in a way that empowers other folks while looking out for their well-being and looking out for the well-being of the whole. Like this is the greatest opportunity that men have had if you are willing to look at it through that lens. And I'm not saying it doesn't take, it takes something to look at it through. It takes something in all instances. I have a chapter on it, on mindset itself. To see yourself as the victor of a situation and not the victim of the situation. And so the message that I want to get to the men who are feeling a little hopeless is like, do not fret. Do not take it out on yourself by drinking or gambling or, by like not caring for your health or your mental and your physical and your emotional health. Like take this as an opportunity, as a challenge to rise above the low bar of expectations that you had previously expected to have been set for yourself. And if you do so, even if you just make moves in that direction, the world, women, the society as a whole is like warmly waiting for you. They are not coldly casting you aside. They are not sending you off into the wilderness to die on your own. They are saying if you can bring your best and your all to us, like we embrace you, we want you, you are a part of us as a whole. That is the message that I want for them to take.
It's a what a needed and wonderful message, and I know I've shared a little bit with you about my own experience as a successful man, was successful in my career, was helping a lot of people, but I was deeply cut off from a lot of parts of my life and miserable. And I was lucky to find, I wish I had found your book back then when I was dealing with those things, but I was able to get, some help, and people that visit my website, they see my introductory video. I know you've seen it, Confessions of a Twice Divorced Marriage Counselor. And it allowed me to be able to speak not only to the truth I was seeing with a lot of often younger and men that are cut off in different ways, but very successful men who we wouldn't
Hmm.
think. There was just an interview with Sylvester Stallone about his own, very famous Sylvester
Hmm.
Stallone had done all the movies, all the success, but felt really cut off in his own personal life and took a long time to heal that. Well, in my case, I was able to get involved in a men's group years ago, and the men's group has been meeting regularly, still going, for 46 years. And my wife, Carlin, who, I've been divorced twice, but married third time, will tell people that one of the reasons she feels that she and I are having a very successful 45-year marriage is because I've been in a men's group for 46 years. And you
I get
talk,
chills.
yeah, you talk about this in your book. I think you have a section, Bros Need Bros, and
Bros need bros.
you recognize. So speak a little more to your experience of the importance of, in different ways, different kinds of men's experience, that looking out there, always looking for a woman or a partner or a
Hmm.
sexual conquest or whatever. Often what we really need is to get back in touch with ourselves and other men who we
Yeah.
often have felt competitive with or felt I could never tell them about this part of me that I feel
Right.
very ashamed of. So what's been your experience of guys needing other guys in the various ways that we find positively to find ourselves and our connections with others?
Totally. Well, one of the very first things that I found when I started coaching, because again, I had not expected to work with men, was that Overwhelmingly, they had no one else to speak to about anything going on in their life other than me as their coach and their wife on the subjects that they felt safe to talk to her about. And there were certain subjects in certain areas where I could not properly mirror or reflect or hold what it was that he needed support with. There's just real cultural and lived and social and behavioral differences between what it is to live as a man and what it is to live as a woman. And we can acknowledge those. And we can acknowledge our limitations. And the best example that I have actually comes from my personal life. We're going on a camping trip with a friend of ours, my ex-husband and I, another married couple. And uh, uh, she called me to talk about the specs of the rental car that we needed in order to get up to the campsite on this mountain. And neither of us knows what the heck we're talking about. We're like, I think it needs like an 18-inch clearance, yada, yada. And then finally we both said, wait a minute, this is a man conversation. And we hung up and we got our husbands on the phone. And for me, the moment of clarity was just, oh, we're asking way too much of our our romantic partner, me too, in return. If I'm asking too much of my husband, if I'm asking him to be all of these things for me, if he's asking me to be all of those things for him, the car thing is a little bit essential, but it's funny because of that, right? Like it was the kind of conversation that two men should be having with each other because they had the information, they had the know-how, they were going to be able to get to the result in the way that we needed them to. It was better for all of us for them to just have a direct relationship, right? That is the silliest, smallest example, but you can extrapolate that 1,000 times over, right? So when you're questioning how to be a great dad, when you're feeling down on yourself because of a decision that you made, because you raised your voice, because you weren't able to complete a project, because you didn't get the raise that you wanted, because all of the things that you were dealing with in the way that you were dealing with them as a man, having other men in your life who have been there, who can who can speak from actual lived experience of what it's like to be a man in your shoes, men who can at least be a supportive mirror and say to you, hey, in my own relationship with my wife, or it seems to me like this is what's going on, in your life based off of my experience, you might want to try something differently. There are just real limitations. And what we're doing in the way that we've set up our culture is if we talk about the male loneliness epidemic, we should also talk about the couple loneliness epidemic. Because how many people do you know that are a couple? They treat each other as if they're like the only social connection that matters. They exist in isolation. Maybe they have other couple friends, but they're not necessarily having like deep and vulnerable conversations and I'm not saying that this is true for all folks, but the majority of folks I know who have self-isolated as a couple do not have really strong networks made up of people who look like them and who are walking around in similar bodies having similar experiences. Another example that I could give that I really discovered over the last couple decades of working with men is that the way that we experience physical touch in most spaces is extremely different, right? So if you go and you have a conversation with your wife about that you feel touch starved, right? She doesn't get that in the way that another guy could. So what I mean by that is like if you feel like you're not getting enough physical touch, that like you're skin hungry, you miss having contact with other human beings. Well, her lived experience is that probably the kids hang off of her if they're young. Her friends and her have no problem giving each other long hugs. I mean, depending on their level of comfort, maybe they snuggle together while they're watching television or they hold hands. Like women get a lot of physical touch. For women, having more physical touch can actually feel very threatening, right? When we go out into public, the thought of someone touching us is usually associated with danger and violence. We
Right.
have such different relationships to things as simple as touch. When I walk into a store or into an environment, like no one reads me as a threat. I'm welcome. People smile. They're like, hey, welcome. Like generally my experience lived as a woman, as a white woman too, as a white woman in her 30s, is that I can go pretty much anywhere and people are like, hey, come on in, welcome. Good to see you, right? That is not the lived experience of men. Many men are men size them up to see if they're a threat. They size them up to see if they're in danger or if they could be a danger or if they would be easily defeated if violence was to occur. It's a very different world. Your wife, your partner cannot understand. She doesn't know. She's not meant to, and you don't want her to understand what it is like to move throughout the world as a man. And surrounding yourself with other men with whom you can feel safe, with whom you can have a brotherhood, who can be vulnerable with you and set the tone so that you can be vulnerable back with them. This isn't new. This is actually us restoring the way that our society and our social networks and our support networks have existed throughout time.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. And I just make a couple of comments from my personal experience. One about the ways in which we don't have support as couples. Um, and I know in my first marriage, particularly, that was the most long-lived. We were married 10 years, had kids, and then things started to get difficult. But our experience together was we were very isolated as a couple, trying to do our lives. And the experience that I think we both had, and many, I think, couples have, is it's me and you against the world. And so we would, feel like we're in our own little bunker and the world out there is dangerous and we're going to just stay close. And it robs you of being able to hear from other couples or to feel the broader world. So that's, I think, one piece of it. In terms of, being able to recognize the different ways in which men need to connect with men. I mentioned, I've been in and am in a group that some of the guys have died. There were seven of us when we started the group. Four of the guys have died. There's only three of us still alive after 46 years. But I remember the experience of being able from the beginning. It was a very caring group where we could begin to talk openly. And one of the first questions I still remember in the first group was we were asked by a male facilitator if we would be willing to share what experience did we have where we felt betrayed by another man.
Mm.
And we'd all, many have had betrayals by women and betrayals but when we started being open, we talked about brothers that had, hurt us or were beat up on us when we were kids, fathers who were abusive or not there or left, and we felt unable to know who we are as men because we lost fathers. So we began talking about those realities. And then fast forward probably 10 years into the group, we had an experience where it was life changing, where somebody had suggested we'd met, we got to know each other, we were close. We, after the group would meet, we'd sit in the hot tub and, kind of enjoy the talk afterwards. Well, in one of the groups during the meeting, one of the guys said, it's private, we were nobody around, but he suggested we all take our clothes off. So it's mostly heterosexual guys. We're not used to taking our clothes off at all, but with other men, all the fears of
Mhm.
homophobia and fear.
Mhm.
And and I remember each man in turn, so you can picture this, seven guys took our clothes off one at a time, and each man stood in front of the other guys naked and just preparing for it. I'm next. And I remember by the time I stood up in front of the other men, took my clothes off, and the request each man was asked to make was, what do you appreciate about my body?
Mm.
And what we realized is those heterosexual, we knew what women liked about our body. We'd been
Mhm.
told very, and over the years, I like this or this is sexy. But what men would share, I liked the shape of the hair on your chest, or how strong your thighs look. I mean, things
Uh-huh.
that I never had heard. And I realized, as did the other men, we were hungry for
Mhm.
hearing that kind of validation because in all our lives after that, we felt more like, somebody a man sees me. And we almost
Mm.
all had experiences where we didn't have fathers that gave us that kind of physical validation, that we felt touched, hugged, recognized, appreciated for our male bodies. And it stuck with us now. We're old guys, but we all remember the time we took the risk to stand in front of other men and make ourselves physically vulnerable and hear feedback that basically was so validating
Hmm.
that it helped, when I had kids of my own and my sons, and I have daughters too, had, that way to really validate each other. So I just, share that because I'm
Yeah.
sure those are the kind of things that you're talking about, and that in a good men's group, that I think are more and more of them, we not only overcome the loneliness, but we find a deep connection to ourselves and each other and other
Yeah.
people that we need to connect with. So thank you for what you're doing in that area and appreciating what you can say to men and what you can't say that men really need to say and hear from each other, and vice versa. Because no, my wife has been in women's groups all this time, and I've been in men's groups, and that's enabled us to have this very deep relationship that we have. And my children, and I told you I've got 6 grown children and 17 grandchildren and 4 great grandchildren. So the beat goes on. So I want to,
Hmm.
kind of shift gears a little bit because we talked a lot about men and a lot about what you offer men, but I think your book is for everybody. I think women obviously
Hmm.
need to hear the book, not only for men in their life who they need to understand better, but for women, what we say about men also helps us understand who we are as the other sex, or
Totally.
any intersex, or those that don't identify as binary, all the ways in which we need to come
Yeah.
home to ourselves. So say a little bit more about who the book is for, who the audience is, and where you're seeing now as the book starts getting ready to be out in the world.
Well, totally. I mean, something that and thank you so much for sharing that. What an incredible story, and what a testament to, the risks that we can take that in the moment feel so tremendous, but change our whole lives for the better. I didn't write about this so much in the book, not directly, but it's something I live by, which is that like the insides matches the outsides. And by that I mean like as above, so below, as without, so within. Like what's going on inside of me matches what's going on outside of me, and vice versa. And so if you have a strained relationship with men or with women as a whole, likely is a reflection of you having a strained relationship with masculinity or femininity that's happening inside of yourself.
Right.
And it can be historical in nature. It can be because of the way that your dad was present or wasn't, or or your mom or your brother or your sibling. Like, but the more that we shape our outsides in a way that restores balance and harmony to our insides, the more ease and flow we'll have across our entire lives. And to that point, yes, the book is written for men who want to have a better sex life, very, very broadly. And women are just as guilty as men at at essentializing, at reducing men to just a collection of parts. Right? I mean, what's the very famous trope about a man who's dealing with erectile dysfunction, and a partner's response is, "Are you not attracted to me? Do I not turn you on?" Right? As women, our go-to, and it's no individual woman's fault. We were all raised to do this, but our go-to is to center ourselves such that whatever is going on with him sexually, we've caused it. It's our fault, or it's a direct reflection of how he feels about us, instead of a consequence of all of these upstream factors and systems working together or misfiring such that he's not getting hard, or not staying hard, or getting off, or not getting off. If you as a woman have a male partner, or have the desire to understand men and at their fullness more deeply, the book is built for that as well. We there's what I like to call nefarious benefit. There is some nefarious benefit to women to reducing men to a series of parts, right? It is way easier as a culture and as individuals to sort of say, well, women and women's sexuality is complicated and men's is straightforward, right? Living in this polarity does no good to either side. Right? It appears as easy, and of course, reducing things like that is easy, right? Good, bad, but it's not true. And when we pit women's sexuality and men's sexuality against each other like that, what we're saying is that there's no way that women's sexuality can be easy and straightforward, and there's no way that men's can be nuanced. And the truth is that you can't paint with such a broad brush. Women's sexuality can be a whole lot of things, as can men's. So if you are looking for a way to understand your male partner better, and I think a lot of women are, a lot of women I think do really want to. They spend a lot of time and energy, certainly like my girl groups and my friends group texts, we spend a lot of time trying to decipher men's behaviors. He said this, he did this, he asked for that, he wouldn't say this, right? The book is a great lens inside of all of the individual systems that make up men's sexuality that maybe even your partner wouldn't be able to articulate for you because he hasn't really fully been able to digest or even represent for himself. And then lastly, the other group that I hope will pick up the book is sex coaches in particular, because that's my field, but also female sex therapists and other female professional helpers of men and male helpers of men too. But in my field, I often work with women who are perfectly capable, extremely well educated, phenomenal coaches, but they have some reluctance when it comes to working with male clients. Part of it can be that they feel like there's too much of a difference between them and their client, and they're not sure how they can help them. Some of it has to do with their own trauma, maybe having experienced assault at the hands of a man or some kind of adverse event. But I really want to empower all of these incredible professional helpers to know that actually not only can they help men because of their own experiences, they might be uniquely capable of supporting men, and that men need their help. Men need the help of anyone who is capable and earnestly willing and credible to give it. Your help is needed, your support is needed, your listening is needed, your ability to see and to hold space, and even just to be a safe presence for men is such a gift to men and to the world at large, and I really want to empower them to be able to give it.
Oh, yes, and so needed. And I want to, as we're getting kind of close to the end of our time together, you brought up something that a couple of things, many things. We need to do more of this. We need to, have you on again, and we'll talk more. But most of us who are in the field in some way, there's only so many people we can see.
Mhm.
One face to face live in my office. I have an office. I see people live. I still do that. But a lot of how I interact, like you and like many other people, and increasingly everybody in this modern world interacts online with social media and all the different ways. And I want to have you speak to an added dimension of both the problem and I think part of what we need to do differently collectively for solutions, which is the nature of a lot of the media online world, including artificial intelligence and all the expanded ways that this is going on, is to emphasize conflict, that
Mm.
conflict sells, good guys and bad guys, him or her, separating. It's not just, a happenstance that this is going on there. As we know, the algorithms that sell our attention, that keep us hooked, often are set up to be able to keep people engaged. And the biology of sexuality, the biology of survival says that when we're threatened, when there's an enemy, we pay attention. And so if you create an environment where we are inherently different and in conflict, you're going to sell more whatever you're selling. So, one of the things that I appreciate about what I know of your work and what I see you doing and what I try to do on my website and interaction is to be able to create a safe environment that is as free as I can make it of the kind of exploitive uh, interactions that the social media increasingly does. So I'm wondering if you could speak both to the social media that we're all part of and what part that plays into the
Mm.
separations that get created. and what you're trying to do and what I'm trying to do, and hopefully others of goodwill and good faith and who really want to bring people together rather than separate them and sell more stuff. What we can all do to make uh, books like these, interactions like these, opportunities for people to get to know us and see that we're real and that we want to connect for the betterment of humanity and men and women everywhere.
Yeah. The as a content creator, I know firsthand that the more inflammatory your content is, the more that you can stoke divisiveness, the more that you can feed into this battle of the sexes sort of concept, the more that you can present your side as, and whether that side is like me as a woman or me as a woman who speaks to men. If I can speak to anyone as a victim and as a perpetrator and as myself as some kind of a savior, that is an easy and cheap way to garner a lot of attention on the internet. You can get a ton of views, you can get a bunch of comments because people love to take a side in the comments and fight it out in the comments. And it is ultimately, you have to decide for yourself, both as a content creator and as a content consumer, what you want to fill your mind and your time with. So for me, even though it has meant sometimes knowing that I could generate more clicks or more views by playing into that, and I certainly see some of the folks who I consider to be like my competitors on YouTube doing that, at the end of the day, I don't want energetically to live with the consequences of putting that into the world. I believe that my lived experience is in many ways the direct reflections of the intentions that I work with, the actions that I take, and beyond that, the way that I do those things or the reason that I do those things. And so I want my world to be filled with those same messages that you were just sharing about uplifting and empowering and creating a better, more peaceful world where people actually are living in harmony and have healthy and happy relationships. And because that is what I want, that's the kind of content that I try to create. It's also the kind of content that I do my best to consume. And when I find myself, when my algorithm, the beautiful mirror that it is looking back at me going, hey, would you like some social media or some videos on like pop stars getting into fights with each other? I have to go, no, that's actually not what I want. Thank you. I
Yeah,
understand why you're feeding that to me because the little demon on my shoulder is like, yeah, tell me everything. I want to know.
right.
What did she say about her? It's my job, it's my responsibility to act in alignment with my values. And it's so, I don't think we talk about it today. My experience is that we're so rushed and we're just moving, and I'm so guilty of this myself, from thing to thing to thing, that we don't pause to get clear on our intentions. Why is it that I am doing this thing? I say all the time, like the distinction between like taking care of yourself and going through what occurs as a chore is just your intention. We think about like self-care. Self-care had such a moment recently in the news and in social media, but like taking care of yourself is doing things with intention. If I put my laundry away and the whole time I'm like, oh, I hate my laundry and I hate my boss and I hate my job, it's so stupid. This house is crap and I can't believe I didn't fix this closet shelf or whatever. Or I can put my laundry away going, this is a loving act of caring for myself. Oh my gosh, the things that I own that clothe me and that clothe my family. And what a privilege it is to be able to afford clothing that I enjoy or have a washer and dryer, access to the, it's putting away the laundry. The laundry
Right.
is the laundry. You putting it away, how you do it, the energy that you bring to it is what it gets imbued with. And I wish more people really practice this
Yes.
so that more people would really know it. Because I don't think
Right.
it's the kind of thing, it sounds woo-woo even as I say it, but once you start doing it, you will reap the rewards. And I'll give you the easiest way to start doing it. It's food. You may know people in your life already who won't gossip or won't speak ill while they're making food, right? If they're making food, they're not you can have a conversation, but they're not going to talk trash. They're not going to complain,
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
they're making food, and that's because the way that you're making the food, the energy that you're
Right.
putting into the food shifts. And so just try it. Just try it for the next week. Whenever you make a meal, and by the way, you could be microwaving that meal. It doesn't have to be. We're not talking about like home cooked from scratch, made by Nona. I'm talking about like you're pouring your coffee. what are your wishes for today? What are your intentions for today? What do you want to get out today? How do you want to be today? Today, I want to be focused. I want to be centered. I want to be grounded. As you're eating, today, I want to be focused. I want to be centered. I want to be grounded. And the next time I talk to my wife or my child, I want to do it from a focused and grounded and centered place. And then put that into your body, put that into the meal, put that into the meal that you're making for someone else. Try that for a few days, for a week or so, and just see what it brings to your life to be consuming something that is made with energy that was intentional and set by you and for you. The algorithm is by you and for you to get views and steal your attention and keep you hooked and to prevent you from looking away and tending to your life and your laundry and your food and your children. Try try the intentional. Try going
Mm,
just one step slower
yeah.
to imbue things with something that is like specific to how you want your day and your life and your family to go, and you will see a tremendous difference. It's all about what we're consuming.
Exactly. Oh, this is just wonderful. We definitely need to continue this. Let me just again hold up the book one more time and have you say to the audience, one, where people can get the book
Mhm.
when it comes out, how they can be in touch with you so they can know more about what you're doing, and then I'll continue to put this out, and then we can stay on, talk a little more once we say goodbye to our
Well, yes,
audience.
thank you. This was a fabulous conversation. I really, really, really appreciate it. And everyone, you can find my book, Harder, Better, Longer, Stronger, at hblsbook.com. That's HBLS, Harder, Better, Longer, Stronger, book.com. If you are listening to this before the book comes out, you can get all of the pre-order bonuses, including that behind the scenes, what I said, the things that I couldn't put in the book, a couple extra guided meditations. You can enter to win a few prizes, including a session with me, all at hblsbook.com. And if you're listening to this after the book is published, still go to hblsbook.com. That's where you'll be able to download all of the bonuses and other freebies that are included with the book. And you can find me and all of my content on YouTube by searching Caitlin V.
Super. Well, I love that there's so many ways that people can stay in touch with you, that I will, and this has been delightful. I think for me, for you, and for everybody that will watch this, I will continue to work with you to get this information and your book out because genuinely, it's a book I wish I had had in the past. It's never too late to have really good information at whatever stage of life we're at. And I've already, dived into the book and really enjoying it. So for now, we'll say goodbye to our audience and you and I can stay on and chat a little longer.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.